Hey y'all, welcome. How's it going,
Hello.
Eliza?
Going
Gigi, Darby?
well.
Good.
How are
Good.
you?
Doing good. Doing
Nice.
good. Happy Thursday.
Woohoo.
Excited for this parent coffee. It's a busy week, so it may be small in numbers, but small but mighty. And we'll go ahead and jump in, and I'll just admit folks as they come in. But really excited for today's topic, which is how we as parents and caregivers can really shape our child's learning at the Forest School and the Forest School online. So this is a shared parent coffee with both the Forest School and the Forest School online. And before we jump into the meat of the topic, just a friendly reminder, we've got our first theater ever, and it's actually got both learners at the Forest School and the Forest School online who are participating. And what you can see here is the actual cast. So it's Beware the Jabberwock, and you may recognize some of these names on the right-hand side, and maybe a little bit less so on the left-hand side, because those are the characters, which I think are amazing. I'm not sure what a Borogrove is, or a Bandersnatch, or a Jub Jub Bird, but I think I'm going to find out. And I have read, Alice in Wonderland, but I'm not, the Jabberwocky scared me a lot as a young person. But you know, so hopefully this doesn't trigger me, but I'm excited for what's to come. Any comments or questions about the theater that's happening? I also want to draw your attention. I shared this with high school in the past, but our next college counseling webinar, just in case, even if you don't have a high schooler and you would like to hop on and kind of be a fly on the wall and or bring your own questions and ask, y'all, Brennan Barnard is an absolute expert in college admissions in the United States. And he wrote the book, The Truth About College Admissions, how to like get in and keep your family together. And this is actually the workbook right here that parents can walk through. But so y'all know he has a monthly call that's available for learners at Forest Online and the Forest School. It's an hour. It's on Zoom, and he gives a presentation. The next presentation happens to be on how you can plan for college over the summer, what you should be doing. And then what you can do is you can after the presentation, you can bring any question to him that you want, and you can just ask him. And even and with your learner, without your learner, and he'll go into the details with you, and it's actually really helpful for folks to hear that. Even if it's a very individualized question, it usually applies to almost everyone, and it often brings up other ideas that you haven't thought about. And Brennan is so good. He is an advisor for some Harvard projects. He's a regular contributor on Forbes, and it costs about $350 an hour to hire him in the marketplace. And you, as a parent of Forrest, get him for free once a month. So I highly recommend this. Any comments or questions about college counseling? We also have an open house coming up for the Forest School online tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. I believe Eliza and I are going to be there. We've got 9 registrants who are signed up. If you know anybody interested in an online global school, like ours, please direct them to our open house. And then we're going to do another open house for the Forest School in Acton Academy, but this will be on Zoom. It'll be sort of a Q&A with me on February 25 at noon. So if you know anybody who wants to come to that. So let's jump right in. I would love to invite you to share in the Zoom chat. What are a few things that you'd love to see your child learn or grow in over the next 90 days? And I chose 90 days because we can, as people, we can sort of imagine that. It's like, okay, 3 months, 90 days from now, what do I want them to grow in? What do I want them to learn? Would you reflect on that and drop it in the chat? If you've just joined us, I want to invite you to drop in the chat. What are a few things that you'd love to see your child or your children learn or grow in over the next 90 days? Mom, this is something you want me to see me grow in? My mom's on the call, Gigi here, Joan Thigpen, if you didn't know this. I mean, if is this a, are you calling me out now? You're on mute. We can't hear you.
What I see in some of the learners, and particularly well, it really is across the board. You can see it in all areas in all studios that there are some that don't take personal accountability for making progress. So I think that's important, and I've noticed that.
Great. Megan, will you say a little bit more about what you and Eliza agree with, which is they can do hard things? Why is that important for you and your kids right now?
I've just been witness to the struggle this year. It was a big transition for Vivi to move to FSO, and I think she's learned a lot about herself through this, but it's only really now that we're seeing
Hmm.
her persevere in the face of that challenge, whereas before I think she very much would very quickly fall into distraction and avoidance. And trying to sort of coach her through that to the point where now she's initiating progressing, even when it's hard, even when she would really like to just get lost in distraction.
Yeah. That seems to be a theme in some of our responses here. Well, thank you for dropping that in the chat. I want to invite you to hold on to that goal that you have for your child or your children. And I want to invite you for the rest of our time to consider how could you partner with the school to to grow that thing in your child. And what my goal is, I want to give you some options of what that could potentially look and feel like. And if you were at an exhibition and most of you were, I recognize you. I shared the story of the very last school that I helped design, which is in South Atlanta. It's like a lot of schools around the world where the school decides most of the things, what you learn, when you learn it, how fast to go, and what counts for missing school. But when we designed the Forest School Online, when we designed the Forest School and Acton Academy, we wanted to flip that on its head, and we said, okay, what if families um, were the ones who actually were making these decisions? What you learn, when you learn it, how fast to go, what counts as okay for missing. And so, what I'd love to do right now is I want to walk you through, I want to go a little bit deeper with this and walk you through some real-time examples of different ages at the Forest School Online and the Forest School and Acton Academy of ways in which parents are making deliberate, intentional decisions to partner with the school to address what they feel is something really important. I confessed this week at exhibition, and I'll confess again now. I feel that I, as a leader, I don't think I've done a super great job of explaining and educating our parent community on all the different ways that you can enact your agency, that you can have a say in your child's learning at Forest. And so my goal is to make sure that you see the options that are before you. So I'm going to start with some examples. I'm going to go through each age group. I'm going to start with the youngest and go to the oldest, all the way through high school, so ages 3 to 18. And at each age group, I'll stop, I'll pause for questions or comments or ideas or cries of outrage, and then we'll kind of move on to the next group. So let's start with ages 3 to 6. So a there's a we have a parent of a one of these learners of this age group who made a very special learning plan while they were traveling in Bali so that they could still make progress and still advance from one studio to the other. And so basically all they did was during this time of travel, they reached out to the guide and said, "Hey, how can we keep going?" And the guide and the parent collaborated, and it was awesome. So they took their learning with them on the road. You know, at Forest, we don't have something that's called excused or unexcused absences. That's not a thing because we trust parents. You know, y'all are making great. We are all making, I think, important, deliberate decisions about what we want for our kids. There are some Spark parents. This is for those of you at Forest Online. We call ages 3 to 6 Spark at the Forest School and Acton Academy. They wanted their learners to learn, knitting a hat because that was something that they loved. Japanese and Spanish. These are all new badges, and the process for that. And I was actually talking with a dad about this today. The process for that is like, hey, we the family, we want to make this learning experience for for our young person. How do we structure that? And this is where we are expert. Like we know what deep learning looks like. We know how to structure independent studies, which we call badges. And so we try and understand at that point the goal of the learner, the goal of the parents, and then we work backwards from that. And then we'll build a badge, send it out to the parents and the learner, get feedback, and then we'll press go. And then we'll work it into our check-ins, with the learner. And that becomes a part of the badge plan. And this happens at the youngest ages. It really happens at any age at Forest. Also, our guides, thanks to a parent, our guides and a parent actually created a visual badge mapping system for learner accountability. I've actually seen parents do something like this at their house where they'll put something up on a whiteboard, they'll put something up on a chalkboard, and they'll name, like badge plans or what have you. And they'll help learners like in this visual right here. I think each learner has their own little ship with their name on it. And then every time oh, no, actually, they have a phoenix. I'm sorry. You can see the phoenix there on language arts. So each has a phoenix because that's our mascot with the name on it. And they move the phoenix once they master things. Let me pause there. Any questions, comments, or ideas about these examples of ways that parents are having a say in their child's learning? Amber, anything you want to add about this age group or Eliza?
Nope, I think that you hit the main topics. It's just getting with the guides and myself about what it is that you want to add, making sure that if it's something that we don't offer here, that you're bringing the materials in for them to use, or if it's a certain platform or something that we have access as well to that platform so we can kind of see behind the scenes and make sure they're working on what they should be.
And then one of the things that Eliza, Amber, Chrissy, and I do with parents as well is help you think through the trade-offs. Like if you're going to add this, what's got to give? Um, if you don't do this, what's at stake? If you do this, what's at stake? And just help you think through the trade-offs. The only time we would say no to something is if it's not going to align with our community's agreed upon like graduation requirements and standards. But that we built those together. Um, but I mean, I can't think of many times where we've actually said no. Ages 7 to 10, a few examples. We have a parent right now asking excellent follow-up questions at home on their learner progress, and they partnered with our staff to figure out, okay, what should I be asking? Another parent of this age group decided to customize a badge plan for their daughter's interests and goals. Another one, similar to what Amber just said, chose a different math platform that better aligns with how their learner is challenged and enjoys learning math. In this case, it's called Math is Good and Beautiful. And then also, we had a great moment where a parent wanted to strengthen follow through. And so they reached out to us to give feedback and they shared some ideas and wonderings about how, consequences were showing up in the studio or not showing up. And that feedback revised the process for right now, how guides and learners are holding one another accountable. So that was great. Sometimes it makes a ton of sense to just reach out to Eliza with a question, reach out to Amber with a question to strengthen follow through, and and go from there. Any comments or questions or ideas about these examples?
I have a question. This is Tiffany. I'm in the car, so apologies for any audio issues. So I love that, all that the Forest School does to empower parents and kids to, really kind of chart their own path. Sometimes as the parent, you can ask the questions to kind of, gauge what interests are there for your kid, where they might want to go deep with their learning or expand into something that's not a part of the badge plan. Sometimes that lands with the kids and sometimes it doesn't land as well. So from the guide perspective, how could the parent be supported in encouraging the learner to go for something that they're really interested in and not just, stick with the badge plan as it is laid out to kind of spark that curiosity and go a little bit deeper. I just know sometimes I might mention something that's like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good, but it doesn't stick as much as if the guide were to mention it. So how can the parent and the guide kind of partner together to kind of spark that expansion so that they could build beyond the foundational badge plan?
Love that. I'll let Amber and Eliza answer first. I've got a strong opinion held lightly on this, but Amber, Eliza, what do y'all think?
This is Amber. For me, I think that one of the biggest ways to do that would be partnering with the guides when they're doing check-ins and asking certain questions, prompting them to ask the learner certain questions. Also, dream teams are a great way to include that as well. So if it's something that they're interested in, encouraging them to invite someone in that industry to their dream team and talk to them about it. And the guides can kind of reiterate that when they're doing their check-ins with them weekly and ask questions of them, like, how far have you gotten? Did you talk to so and so? Did you send out any emails? Or I know somebody in that field. So they can do something like that if the guide is aware that the parents are looking for a certain topic or something for the learners to go into.
For me at the online school, one thing actually I stole this from Tyler. I thought it was very great learner-centered way of doing this is if there are things that you know your child is interested in or you've had those conversations and there are clear ideas, sending a group email, like so sending an email to the guide with your learner CC'd about, hey, my child is really interested in this, and we were talking about the other day, but they're not really sure how to work that into their badge plan. I would love for you to talk about that at your next check-in. That way, the ball is still in the learner's court, but we have more context and more things to kind of run through ideas with. If your child is one of the ones that they're like, I don't know what I'm interested in, I don't know what I like, which does happen very, very often. There's a couple ways to kind of go about doing that. One could be just observing what they're spending their time doing and kind of taking note of that, maybe sending that into the guide. I know when I have those conversations, I have learners who are reluctant or resistant to certain things because they don't really know what they like and none of it seems interesting. I often just ask, okay, what do you do in your free time? And then we can build around that. Like I have two learners who we have built a custom badge around video games that they play. One in an esports angle, one in more of strategic decision making angle. But I've done the same if you know your child, I've done the same as a mother, marrying the things that my youngest daughter is into with things that are important for us as a family that she does well. Like, for instance, geography is really important. I live in a multicultural family. Geography is really important to us. It's not important to her. So I helped her create a badge that married geography with fashion and pop music because that is what is important to her. And so, it just kind of depends on where you are in the process and how strongly the interests of your child are there and apparent to you. But no matter where they are, there is a way to kind of reach out and start those conversations and get them going.
I'll add two ideas. Tiffany, one, I mean, part of what I'm hearing you ask is, and I'm actually, Darby, hearing you ask this too in your comment. Um, sometimes it can be more powerful coming from another, person, basically. And I think that's something we've done too, like where you can say to us, hey, what if you bring, like, what do you say to us, like me or Amber or Eliza or a guide, say, hey, what if you talk to them about this, and see if they're interested. And that's something we can easily do, and just pitch it to them, be like, hey, what if you did this. But I think the thing that really hooks them on this kind of stuff is actually a public audience that it would be fun for them. So, for example, I see Joe on the call. I was talking with Joe this morning about the idea of, and not that his kids are going to do this, but they may. They're playing an instrument right now, and so there's the idea of like, what if there was a badge designed around playing an instrument? Well, the something that would be really compelling potentially, or not, but it would be a good like test to see is to have, a learner perform, for example, the guitar publicly at an event, and that they're just preparing for that between now and then. And, so so what I did was I thought with Joe, I was like, well, we've got this theater coming up in May. And as people are walking in, somebody could be playing music for 20 minutes, 30 minutes as they're walking in, and your learner could potentially like prepare from now until then for that moment. And if that's fun to them, I mean, my goodness, game over. Like if that idea is fun, they're going to work hard. Another would be that's actually happened yesterday. We had a couple learners who wrote a song, and they were given the opportunity to perform that at exhibition. My son actually a couple years ago wrote a fantasy novel, and he was given a chance to share that with a public audience. At the end of it. So I think thinking through what might interest them and then coming up with a public audience and then even brainstorming with us about what could potentially be a public audience, could be within the family, could be at school, could be in the neighborhood, could be at a, social institution like a church or a synagogue or a mosque, to share, what it is that they've learned. I think that could be really powerful. Let's move on to middle school. Here's some things that are happening with middle school right now. Um, some parents took their learners to Costa Rica and did Zoom check-ins from abroad. I mean, this is just totally normal for Forest School Online. This is just what happens all the time anyway. For the Forest School and Acton Academy, this happens, y'all. You need to know it, and it's rad. Um, uh, the Another parent sent our guides very specific check-in questions to ask and to incorporate, and they identified three things that were like really important to them that they wanted to be asking their learner. One of them had to do with chores. One of them had to do with how they're treating their sister, and then something else. I can't remember what it was, but that's something that we can do is incorporate and align on those questions. And when all the caring adults in a child's life are aligned around, what they're holding them accountable for and what they're expecting, their growth and development will accelerate. So if there's questions you want us to be asking, please, send those to Eliza, send those to Amber, and we can get that in the right place. We have another parent who worked with our guides to expand a learner's badge plan to include algebra. This is in middle school. Algebra, an extra servant leader badge, a course on finance, and a marketing course. That's all real. This learner could have gone up early to high school, but they decided instead to just double down and go deep on these interesting subjects because the learner wanted to be with her friends, in the studio and not move up yet. And then another parent added a writer to their son's dream team because their son really enjoys writing. The son didn't know any writers, but the parent did, and invited, the parent. Um, any questions or comments about these? Or Eliza, Amber, anything to add about these?
I have a question.
Gato.
Um, I I really appreciate the balance here in the forest school. We are kind of new, and we appreciate the balance between learner-led and we are learning about how can we participate. Because before it was more about supporting a supporting role, and now we are learning to be more involved. And I'm curious, my question is about that balance in your experience. How can we uh, let them lead their journey? And like, what is the right amount of involvement so they still feel like they are the leaders of their journey and the owners? Because since we are learning that skill, um, I'm afraid of overstepping and maybe doing too much. And I don't know if I'm not sure what the question is really, but I'm just curious about the balance in your experience using families as part of the team.
Yeah. Kato, I love this question. I'll answer first, and then I'll open it up to the group and see what you guys think. When we started Forest 8 years ago, we asked the question when our young people are 18 years old, what do we want to be true of them by the time that they graduate? We asked that question every couple of years. We asked it again recently and got feedback, and we made a few tweaks and changes, but the same structure is still here. As a community, we really value these things here. We value these social and emotional skills, learning to be, flourishing purpose, resourcefulness, growth mindset, gratitude. We value these marketplace skills, storytelling, creativity, entrepreneurship, design thinking, goal setting, and reflection. We value these learning to learn skills, math, English, civilization, science, and self-directed learning, learning science. And then collaboration, empathy, trust, cross-cultural competence, and social capital. So I think you can, as a parent, trusting the process means and trusting us means like, hey, the longer that your learners are with us, the better they're going to get at these things. And I have a lot of confidence at that because we've designed everything around this. So they're going to get practice at that. So I think you can let your learners lead, because this is what they're going to be doing. The trick is, Kato, you and Fer, like you have more things you want them to learn than this. I mean, we all do. Like for me, I care about faith, and that's not on this list. But they're gonna learn faith because I'm their dad. You know what I mean? Now they get to choose what they believe, but like they're gonna learn, about this component. And there's other values that Summer and I have, for our kids. And you all have different values too. And I think when it comes to those things that don't show up on this list, I think that's where you have an invitation as a parent to really step up and say, hey, you know what? This is something you need to learn, you know? And so let's figure out how you want to learn it. And the school can help with that. But this is really important to me and your dad, you know? Um, so that's how I would think about it. But Amber, Eliza, Gigi, anything y'all would add to or subtract or change from what I said?
For me, um, as a parent, so I've had self-directed learners for like 7 years now, and the hardest part is when they don't want what you want. Like by far, always, every time, that is the hardest part. And so, kind of, I'm a big believer in words. I'm a big believer in conversations, and I think that's the strongest way you can partner with your child for anything. And sometimes for me, what those conversations are is just being very, very vulnerable and honest about why something is important to me and how I'm feeling seeing the choices that they're making. That's making me feel really anxious because I'm worried that you're going to get behind. And I know you want to do this thing. And in order to do this, you have to do this. So if you're not doing this here, that's not going to happen because they're still learning how to think about like long term, like how what I'm doing now affects the long term. And I think, especially if you have an open and strong um, relationship with your child, when they see that something is making you anxious or something is making you upset, and you're not saying, well, you have to do it my way, I'm just letting you know we have to figure something out because this is really important to me and it's not happening, and this is what it's bringing up inside of me and why I feel strongly about it. That's really, really powerful because you're not robbing them of that agency, but you are helping them understand that they do not live in a bubble and their decisions are not in a bubble, and the decisions that they make affect the people that they care about, affect their environment and the people that are around them. And so for me, it's a lot of those conversations, and then a lot, and I've heard Tyler talk about this too, a lot of what happens if you choose not to. So if you choose not to for me, my youngest, it's always math. If you choose not to do math at all this entire session, you can do that. Once the session ends, we're going to be doing math because now you're at home with mom and mom thinks math is important. So you can choose what you do during the session. And this is what happens if you're not making any progress at all, because I need you to make sure your body is aware that it can do this and it's not too difficult and it's not too much. So this is just like an underlying thing that I've established in my home. I'm not saying anyone else has to do that. This is just what I do with my kids.
Thank
For me, that makes, I mean, I kind of mirror what Eliza does in our home. So I have a daughter that's in 10th grade, but she started in 4th grade here, and it has looked different at every stage, right? But what we have done as she's entered high school is have her start thinking about that long-term goal. What are we shooting for? And that way we can kind of back out and decide with her help, what does this look like? What courses do I need to take? What is going to be the consequence of you not taking something this time? Or like this year she ended up with like a math and a half, so she stressed herself out, but it was something she took on herself, and got to a point where she said, hey, you know what, next session I need to bring it down, take on less, because I realized I was stressed myself. So we look at that, really not every session, but every 3 or 4 months, we'll say, hey, what are your goals? Has anything changed? Where are you in the process of getting those things done? And another thing is with our learner design courses, they have, or with the what's the word? I lost it. Passion
Electives?
projects.
Oh,
So with their passion projects, those are times for them to get out and explore all the things. Tyler said something about faith, and my daughter was going through a period of, I just don't know. So for her learner design course, she decided to do a course in religion and study different things and really find out who she was. So a part of that is allowing them to kind of explore what it is they like. And that exploration can happen as part of their badge plan. That's the cool part about being here at Forest. So I would say open communication, checking in and thinking, what are those long-term goals? I think that's what we need to do as parents, is help them to think long-term, because that's not what they're doing right now. They're in the moment.
you. Thank you.
I would encourage y'all as parents, if you haven't ever done this formally, uh, with your partner, or if you're a single mom or dad, just with yourself, or maybe another caregiver who has, or a dream team member of your learner, is to think through when your child is 18, and um, they go through this rite of passage, right, in the United States or elsewhere in the world. What do you want them to know and be able to do? And just like be as clear as you can, and take full responsibility as parents for for growing those things in your children, and appreciating the fact that no school aligns with what's in your heart and mind. And beyond that, even if even if there was alignment, kids are at school on average 18.5% of their waking hours of their life. 18.5%. That is not a strong intervention in their life. It's not the majority of time. I mean, it's a minority of time. So there's only so much that any formal learning environment can accomplish. And that's why I think we as parents have to take full responsibility, and that's why actually I think it's so important to align with us or with a school on, like, hey, this is really important to us. We want this, we're going to emphasize this at home, and we would love for it to be emphasized at school as well. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what's coming up for me.
So
Any questions or comments as before I move on to the next age group?
can I add one more thing, Tyler?
Yeah, and then Dan.
Okay. This also became a learning moment for me and our family. So expect for yourselves too to change and to grow as you are going through this process with your kids. A lot of these things, we were doing check-ins with my daughter, we started to check in with ourselves as a family to say, hey, well, we had not defined for ourselves kind of what those core values were and things that we wanted to pass on. So think about that as well and how you guys can grow in the process too.
Yeah, and I would very much follow with that. And in our family, things that we're learning are very practical in connection with what you said, Tyler, of thinking forward to, what does 18 look like? What is it going to feel like to leave? So a silly example, just getting really, really practical, for instance, a conversation between Finn and I was about brushing teeth. And we just sat down and we're like, okay, I mean, do you, so I just sort of put it on him. Then, how do you want the end of the day to go? Do you want me to ask you if you brush your teeth? Do you want me to check up on you to double check that you're not misrepresenting the truth and whether you did? Do you want to do it on your own? Do you want to create a little signal between us? And I just made him basically solve that problem and tell me what to do. And of course, if he said, I don't want to do it, go pound sand, I wouldn't accept that as an answer. But we just got really painstakingly practical about a silly little thing. And he basically told me, he's like, well, can you be my backup? So I can do this on my own, but I don't like to. And so I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to do it on my own. Don't ask me. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go with that for 2 weeks and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks. And then essentially, I just had one more thing kind of off of my list, which felt like a big win. And there was that backup of like, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I think somewhere in here, we just stumbled on the idea of now it's his problem to make sure he's brushing his teeth and not my problem to make sure he's brushing his teeth.
Well said. And Dan, you're a strong, experienced business leader, and so I can imagine too on teams that you've led, when y'all have got to have something. I mean, there's a world where you sort of say, "Hey, here's what we're doing," and then you mandate it. But then there's another world it's like, "Hey, y'all, let's co-create this together." And there's a whole lot more ownership. And I mean, that's what I try and do at Forest with our team is like, "Hey, we got this thing to do, but let's build it together. What do y'all think needs to happen?" And there's a lot more ownership. And I think what I hear you saying is like when we do that with our young people, with our children, I love that toothbrush example. Like, hey, let's what would be your ideal design for this? There's a lot more buy-in. You know, and so it makes me think back to what you guys all put in the Zoom chat earlier on in this call. That you want them to learn. I mean, what if you Dan McFarland that thing and ask ask the learner like, hey, how would you like to to learn this? Like, what would they say? A few slides for our oldest learners, high schoolers, things that are happening right now. Um, Parents reached out to clarify graduation expectations. They kind of went on their own learning journey so that they can ask questions at home because we're asking those questions at school. But they needed to go on that journey themselves. That was great. Parents and guides collaborated to connect a learner to an expert, and now that individual, that learner, is actually getting paid to do modeling work. And so it's basically like, parents, what we can do in this community is we can leverage our own networks to help one another out. We can make introductions. We do that all the time. And I just wanted you to know that that's an option. If you want to connect your learner to a professional banker or baker or a modeling agency or whatever it is, like we can crowdsource our social networks for the benefit of our young people. Um, Multiple senior families explored early graduation with their kids. We have four. Are there any learners, Eliza, at FSO graduating early this year, like doing finishing high school in 3 years?
There's one on track too.
There's one on track too, and then we have four on track at the Forest School and Acton Academy, and that's a whole family decision right there, y'all. to have I mean, I've had multiple conversations with parents where they're like, well, what do I do when my 16-year-old graduates high school? Not 18, 16, you know? And that's a whole set of questions. But that's a possibility. Or if you want them to go slow, that's a conversation too. A parent, uh, oh, sorry, I dropped out the word holds there, but there's a parent right now who's holding their son accountable for not coming to school. And so there's just communication that's happening between the parent and the guides because this person can drive. And so it's just a layer of accountability. And they're like, hey, are they at school today? Sort of a thing. Um, and again, that's teamwork. And a few more high school examples. A parent contacted guides about an upcoming trip that they hope to translate into a badge. And how can we make this family trip an actual learning experience? And we helped them figure that out. Working with families to create badges aligned with interest. An example, I mean, yeah, Liza's shaking her head. We do this all the time. We have a learner who really hated biology, and so we helped create a course of the biology of interior design because she loves interior design, and it's all about the flora and fauna and her room and the air quality, and it's super smart. Um, but that there's a possibility there. We have two high schoolers right now training to become pilots. They're training in aviation. We've already had four get their pilot's license, so we have two more doing that. And they're considering taking courses via dual enrollment. So just like working with them to customize that. We have a few high schoolers who are taking sciences on alternative platforms outside from Khan. And so what we do is we kind of vet those platforms and give our feedback and help people think through the trade-offs. Any comments or questions about those? Eliza, will you say a sentence more about what you dropped in the chat?
Yeah, and I think this is really the beauty of allowing, like, honoring your child's agency. Is we've had, I know, one last year for sure, and then Chrissy had said that there had been multiple in years past where they've intentionally gone an extra year, not because they're behind in their work, but
Yep.
maybe they had other things they wanted to accomplish, or like emotionally or socially they didn't feel confident and ready to go off into experience a college atmosphere or whatever they were doing after high school. And so having that extra year to either like get more courses or more training in what they wanted to do, or just emotionally prepare for what going away to college would be like, or whatever that next step is for them, I think is very honoring to them. And it leads to a lot of success because when learners, just like potty training, when learners are pushed before they're ready, it generally ends in disaster. So the more you can kind of honor where they are, not just academically, but socially and emotionally, I think the better. And I'm working through that right now with my own daughter, who is a 16-year-old who can graduate at the end of this year. And we're talking through, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? What do you want to do with that extra time now? And so it just is a way to really, I think, honor your learner and their path and their agency.
Love that. What I'd love to do now is I'm going to open breakout groups just for about 8 minutes or so. And I'm going to open four groups. One is for Spark, one's for elementary, one's for middle, one's for high. I want to invite you to go in the one that you choose for your learner. I'm going to go into the high school one. Um, Mom, do you mind going into the Spark one? Maybe Amber, the elementary, and then Eliza, the middle. And maybe Johnny, you choose Johnny, which one you'd like to go to. And I give a thumbs up apparently. My Zoom is feeling me. And what I'd love to do is the discussion question is in the chat. It's what are ways you could partner with the school to shape your child's learning, and just brainstorm and share kind of what hearing all these examples today. Like, what does this make you think? What does it make you wonder? What does it make you, want to do? Or what questions does it bring up? Or what concerns, does it bring up? And we'll go in there and just talk for about 8 minutes, and we'll come back in here together and debrief. Sound good? All right, I'm going to open up the rooms. You're going to have to self-select into the group. Do you guys see how to do that? You click the join button.
I don't have a join button actually.
Yeah, me neither.
If you
It
go
like
down,
showed
I
up
found
for a
it in
second.
more down
Okay.
at the bottom and see if you can see
Breakout
breakout
rooms.
rooms. Yep, and then you
That's
can
it.
select
Uh-huh.
from there.
Thank you.
Yep, yep. Do you see it, Gigi? Okay, yeah. Nobody's in here. Did they all leave? I know Tiffany only has one learner. Did anybody go in middle school?
Are you sure we're out?
I know, right? We just is the same group. I think here it looks like folks are coming back. Looks like the breakout groups will close in 30 seconds. I don't know how that happened. Well, hey y'all, welcome back. Did you guys figure it out? We're all good for life, liberty, the pursuit. Um, so any sort of meta thoughts or observations or enduring questions? I have one encouragement as we close out here that was an aha for me from our group, but any any questions or comments as we close here?
What stood out for me is that I haven't really taken advantage of this co-creation model as much as I could. And so I'll step up in those ways for sure.
Let's go. And Tiffany, I take some responsibility too for not doing a great job of educating on it. And I repent and change my mind and my ways.
I guess I'm just looking forward to kind of having those conversations with my kids and seeing what they want to pursue, what they're passionate about. I want it to be an instrument, but I don't know if that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Darby put in the chat, what do we do if they don't really latch on to or know what they're interested in? There's a theory, this is a dorky thing to say, but there's a theory from developmental theory called social and career cognitive theory that says, um, you know, uh, our interests change over the course of our lives. And one of the things that changes them is just the learning experiences that we go through. So these, what's happening at school, these quests that they're doing, the apprenticeships, the trips you're taking them on, the conversations you have at the dinner table, the people that you're introducing them to, those are all learning experiences. And after each one, if we as parents and caregivers ask them two questions, these two questions are probably one of the most powerful questions that influence their interests. One is, what are you capable of? What do you think? What can you do? Second is, what do you think will happen? Or what do you think will happen if you don't do it? You know, and don't judge their answer. As parents, we're so tempted to hear their answer and judge it and say, well, sure, you can do that. Or, well, if you don't do this, then, but the thing is, their answers to those questions will change. If you think about yourself, like what you believe you can do now is very different than what you thought you could do back in the day. And then now because of life's experience, like what will probably happen, what will be the outcomes of your choices or not. But the more that we ask them those questions, the more we will grow and build their capacity to be able to do that for themselves. And that will change their interests, which will in turn influence their goals, which will in turn influence their actions. So those are two of the most powerful questions I think that we can ask. One final encouragement, just in terms of just strong communications, y'all. Um, Chrissy and Amber are your go-tos. Obviously, at Forest Online, it's Chrissy and Chrissy and Eliza are your go-tos at Forest Online. And if you have any questions, feel free to Slack or email them. And they've got time in their calendars blocked out to be responsive to you all. And of course, and for any parent, if you want to parachute into the your learner's check-in, that's a moment where they're talking about their progress. They're talking about, what's needed. They're talking about next steps, what's lacking. If you want to be a fly on the wall, and then even at the end, pose your own questions just for understanding. That's a great moment to do that. And then, parents of the Forest School and Acton Academy, text Amber. That's her job. It used to be my job. Now it's her job. You text Amber, and what she does, if she doesn't know the answer, is she goes over to the guides and it's like, "Hey, give me the details on this," and then she'll come back to you within 24 hours, typically, to get your questions answered and to get aligned. Honestly, Eliza, Amber, anything to add, subtract, change from that? Cool. You guys are awesome. We're at time. Thanks so much for an invigorating discussion, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye,
All
everyone.
right. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.